Welcome back to Crit and Crit. I'm Axion.
I'm Scint.
This should be an interesting experience.
You mean the book or the game?
Yes.
Okay, fair. For we are starting on a new journey. This journey is Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea while we play La-Mulana.
So, for the unfamiliar, La-Mulana is a Metroidvania platformer with an emphasis on exploration and puzzle solving.
Very esoteric puzzle solving. Pretty much everything we need to do will be explained somewhere in the game. We just might, find the solution like 3 hours after we've done it.
Yep. Or an hour before and on the complete opposite side of the game. But yes, a story of exploration, mystery, treasure hunting, and puzzle solving, coupled with a tale of exploration, adventure, and mystery in the deepest depths. And here we go. So, normally, in these videos that we do, we usually start with a recap of the plot. But Scint, you wanted to start with a slightly different approach today.
Yeah. So, Jules Verne is often called one of the founders of an entire genre, which is to say science fiction. Now, I believe Frankenstein predates his works, but it's possible to say that Jules Verne's work in the field of science fiction has, not happened. Like, it's impossible to say that. He wrote a number of things that dealt with all manner of different subjects. And, this kind of raises the question of, from a modern perspective, where things tend to get kind of pigeonholed, like you get a very specific aesthetic when it comes to a certain genre. But that's what I wanted to talk about. What exactly is science fiction? Because I'm not sure that today we would pick up a book about an awesome submarine and consider it sci-fi. And yet, it is one of the earliest works of well-known science fiction.
I'm gonna go turn that off.
But don't you want Elder Zelpud to be able to contact you with important information?
When I need him to, yes.
But how will you know you need it until he gives it to you?
Anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, I was just asking, what do you think of when you hear science fiction?
I think this is to some degree, a generational thing in my case. That science fiction, to me, tends to be associated more with space and far futuristic type stuff, or with stuff that is very what's the word I'm looking for? Guessing what the future is going to be like. I can't remember what the term for that is.
Speculative.
Thank you. Yes, more like speculative fiction. And often with that used as a lens through which to see to examine topics of importance in the modern day and to extrapolate on how This lady's mean.
You should have bought something.
I didn't have enough money. But yeah, to extrapolate on the development of things in the modern day, as to how things will continue to develop in the future, or to look at modern issues through a fictional and futuristic lens. This is the kind of stuff you'll see in La-Mulana, by the way. Lots of hidden passages and traps and stuff that will try to kill you.
La-Mulana doesn't like you.
What about you? What does science fiction mean to you?
Well, honestly, speculative fiction hits pretty well. Fantasy's often lumped in, but one of the best ways I've heard science fiction described is trying to examine the social ramifications of advances in technology. It's not so much about the aesthetic and the robots and the space that we often associate it with, as much as it is the human reaction. And
all of that is just set dressing.
Yep. Like, fantasy falls into this too. It's just often that, it's fantasy is what if this could happen, and sci-fi is more what if this does happen. Although, like, the trappings of the aesthetic have made the social implications often less of a thing, so much as I wish to see a story about robots, and for the sake of robots, or zombies for the sake of zombies, and etc., etc. But at its core, the genre, I think, got its start from what would happen if, how will people react. We see this early in Frankenstein as well, with what if someone could create life? Well, if they're not equipped to handle what they've created, bad things happen. Novel ensues. And so for 20,000 Leagues, what if somebody could just travel at will under the ocean at a time when this was not something that was seen as being very viable? And yeah, I love me some speculative fiction. I think it's a lot of fun to see what authors can come up with, but looking at it from a lens of social implication and the human ramifications makes it much more interesting, because, well, you can't identify with the machine as easily as you can with the person who's not sure how to feel about the machines.
Welcome into the ruins of La-Mulana.
The soundtrack in this game is so good.
It really is.
Yeah, science fiction is interesting for another reason to me, and that is its overall neglect in the context of being seen as classic literature. By and large, there are very, very few works of what we would understand as science fiction that are accepted into the quote-unquote literary canon. It's often seen as kind of a fluff genre. In fact, the only ones that really come to mind that I can recall like being assigned with any level of regularity in high schools would be Fahrenheit 451 and 1984. Sometimes Brave New World. I hear 1984 assigned a lot more often, though. So this is just my limited experience. I am very likely to be wrong. I believe some younger grades might look at Ender's Game. Ha, trap. But by and large, most English class reading lists tend to try to aim for more realism, older books that your parents had to read, and therefore, by God, we're going to make you read them too.
I can only think of one sci-fi book that was considered required reading for any class I was ever in, and that was my sophomore English class, where one of our reading assignments was The Sound of Thunder. Are you familiar with that one?
It's a Bradbury short story, right?
Yep.
Okay, I was thinking more novels, but yeah, sometimes short stories will make it in. If we're having short stories, I would say Harrison Bergeron also counts.
What's that again?
Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut.
Not familiar with that one.
TLDR, everyone is equal, and if they aren't, we enforce it. Like, the strong people are given fetters to make them move more slowly. Like,
oh, okay, yes.
Keep up.
Yes, I've heard of that one. I've never read it, but I did not know the name. But I have heard of that.
Yeah, so it's, yeah. Bradbury gets in, Orwell gets in, Vonnegut gets in. While I definitely think there should be more that make it in, these are the ones that I have seen regularly come up with summer reading assignments, or even just during the year reading assignments. And I think it's a disservice to, the goal of, teaching people to like reading, because, personal experience here. I don't like some books. It's weird to say, but I definitely have my genre preferences, even as an English teacher who theoretically, should be able to read whatever the heck I'm supposed to read. But no, there are some books that I just cannot get through. I totally get that some kids would be frustrated with just having to read the same stuff over and over again, and be just outright dismissing an entire field of literature because, that just seems too pop culture-y for our taste. Which
or, in many cases, it's too new and it doesn't have cultural relevance.
Cultural relevance is what you make of it.
That is the excuse that has been told to me mostly with regards to stuff like sci-fi and fantasy, is that it's too new, and when we get to classics that are newer, they have important cultural relevance, and that's why they get to be exceptions.
Yeah, I think there's some level of inherent snobbery in the case of what makes it into the literary canon. I don't honestly know what determines it and what doesn't, because, as I think I've mentioned before, I am the English teacher who doesn't actually have an English degree. It's a long story. I was supposed to be a history teacher. Things happen. But, yeah. So, I don't know, so I come about a lot of this from a very different perspective than most others in my specific field. Which, I don't know, works for me, but... yeah, I desperately want the kids I have to learn to enjoy reading, because, I know that not everybody's going to be as into it as me, because, I'd rather read a book than talk to a person, 99.9% of the time, but I totally get that there are, extroverts in the world, and people who, actually enjoy playing sports, and I don't want people to, not do things they enjoy. But there's a lot of value to finding a good story and just being able to escape into someone else's head for a little while. It's a good way to put your own stuff on hold for a bit. But, I don't know. This is nothing new to people who are watching this channel, because why would you be watching this channel if you did not also enjoy books? But, yeah, science fiction, because the entire purpose of the genre is to merit social implication and reflection on how a culture would adapt to changes, whether that be something as sweeping as society stops reading books, is obsessed with TVs, and we burn books, and have all these really weird medical and other things going on in the setting. It's been a while since I've read Fahrenheit. Or something as small as the world is normal, except there happens to be this one really cool boat, and I'm going to tell you about the boat now. As far as science fiction goes, Verne tends to do these things on a fairly small scale. It's like one adventuring thing going on that doesn't really have too much overall implication to the surrounding world. But it's still a thing, and because this thing is here, you obviously have thoughts on it, don't you? Let's see what happens. Are you going to put away on that pedestal?
No, I'm going to take the advice of the skeleton.
What does he know? He's dead.
Yes!
But, yeah, like, I know that this is not the first sci-fi we have done on the channel. Ender's Game, I believe, was the first. Though technically you can maybe also put, like, Lovecraft, because... Well, no, never mind, that's really just more horror.
I was about to say, Lovecraft is more horror, and it doesn't have the sci-fi...
Well, I mean, a lot of the others are... the Elder Gods are like aliens or something, which you could make the case.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah.
Yep.
But I would say that's more horror and less science horror, which would be more something like what Frankenstein would be.
Yeah. We're going to have to do Frankenstein one of these days, because I have so much to say on Frankenstein. It's such a fun book.
It's on the list.
Yay. But yeah, I'm not really sure what else to say right now. Just kind of genre expectations, I guess. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Mostly that sci-fi is one of my favorite genres, and...
Wait, the person with the Porygon avatar likes science fiction?
Yeah, who wouldn't know? I keep missing that jump.
I mean, I don't think you've activated the platform yet, so that's probably why you're missing it.
Well, no, I'm trying to jump to the other side. To that bottom platform where the skeleton is. But these things keep getting in the way. Or those bats. But, anyway, what I was actually going to say is that it's difficult to have a discussion about sci-fi literature without at least touching on the idea of hard sci-fi versus soft sci-fi. Which is one of those concepts that either you recognize as something that's really kind of important, or that... Thank you, Bat. That actually saved me for some trouble. Or that that a lot of people find overly unnecessary and unhelpful. Map. I tend to be one of the people that finds it helpful, but that tends to be because whether or not I'm interested in hard sci-fi or soft sci-fi at the moment I'm reading something is kind of a matter of what mood I'm in. So, to kind of define our terms, hard sci-fi is grounded in reality. It is direct inspiration or extrapolation from... Ah, crud. I thought it was already active. Direct inspiration or extrapolation from existing technology, existing information, existing social behaviors, things like that, versus soft sci-fi, which is where there's less expectation or need for a scientific explanation for the goings-on of current activity. To give kind of a quick example, Ender's Game is kind of on the lighter edge of hard sci-fi. It doesn't use a whole lot of esoteric fantastical technology. It sticks mostly to stuff that is a reasonable derivative of stuff that already exists. This does not in any way mean that those are good things, just that that's kind of what is going on there. Whereas soft sci-fi tends to not stress too much about explaining what's going on. Star Trek is quintessential soft sci-fi. If there's technobabble, it's probably soft sci-fi, because the explanations really only exist so far as they are helpful to forward the plot. They don't need to actually make sense. And then there's sci-fantasy, which is just fantasy with a sci-fi skin. That's things like Star Wars. If it's got magical powers or some kind of reskin of magical powers, such as psychic abilities and things like that, it's probably closer to sci-fantasy than to actual sci-fi. And of course, these definitions do have some give and take depending on who's involved in discussion, individual opinions, things like that. These are not hard and fast rules. I'm out of weights. Well, back to the surface. I need to go this way anyway. Because getting the Holy Grail gives you the ability to teleport.
So you can travel very, very quickly. Much like something that's relevant to what we're going to talk about next time.
Yep, this is a good place to stop. Is it this shop that sells weights? Nope. Yeah, this will be a good place to stop. We will pick up next time with delving deeper into the ruins of La-Mulana and beginning our discussion of the plot of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. See you next time.